Hello, everybody, and welcome to December 16th Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
Well, 2 segments to bring you this week, 6 races all together. We'll get started with the second race from December 9th, the maiden special weight for 3-year-olds and up, going 6.
Yeah, interesting horse in this race. This was an interesting day, which we'll get to. We want to talk about the 4, the Johnny Angel. Actually, you can see breaks on top here. Now, I don't think the rider takes a strong hold in this. This is Junior Alvarado. It's just a situation where the 7, Wild Hero, ends up being aggressively ridden the lead. He sort of takes back. Now, a couple of things going on. There's discussion the rail was not the place to be on this day. Now, as the day wore on, that didn't seem to be the case. But I still think you should be open to the possibility and take a careful look whether horses that rallied inside were on the rail or not. But this horse ends up on the rail and will end up getting shuffled out.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as the leader in this race, Wild Hero, kind of comes over and takes that rail position there, then Johnny's Angel's kind of stuck in behind here and having to try to maintain position as the pack of horses coming up outside there. So it's very important to hold your spot here. But as you see, with 4 of them stacked across the track turning for home, the options are going to be kind of limited here.
Yeah, he gets himself sort of behind the 8 ball as that happens. And look, this is just the way it goes in racing sometimes, and why it's difficult to maintain position with speed-type horses when other horses go outside of you, and why the outside post can be an advantage, despite what some people sometimes believe. On the other hand, the rider, Junior Alvarado, at this point, he's sort of in tight in there, and as you can see, we're going to show you the head-on. This horse has been almost eased at this point, not exactly sure why.
As soon as the 5 horse, the brush, came up to his outside, it just looked like Alvarado knew he wasn't going to get out in time and have enough room, and just took it easy on him in the stretch here, and we'll take a look at the head-on.
Yeah, and here he is. He's behind horses in the blue. He's behind the gray horse, the leader. And I want you to watch for yourself. What happens, look, he wasn't going to win the race, but at this point, the rider's really, he's just got him under a strangle at this point. As you can see, look at the horse's head, and he's jammed down inside. But I think he's a horse that's PP will end up looking worse than it really should be. I believe that the Johnny Angel is not good enough to beat maiden special weights, and I think Eric's in agreement with me. This is a horse that could use a drop down to maiden claim races, and I don't mean maiden cheapies. He's okay to Johnny Angel. Both of his races are better than they look, and we can make some money with him.
I agree. I think a maiden 50 would be a good spot for him somewhere in that area there. Showed some decent speed the first couple times out, so he'll get into a decent position early on. Let's take a look at some more maidens. This is the 4th race from Thursday, and this is a maiden claiming race. We're going to look at the 4, Blind Hope.
Yeah, this was a race that had a lot of pace up front, and Blind Hope steadies out badly at the start. Now, obviously, this compromises his chances, but the way the race set up and the way the racetrack was playing didn't work against him. What worked against him was the decision by the rider, Alan Garcia, to stay inside when they came into the stretch, and that's what hurt him, as he had to steady, and perhaps he wasn't in the best part of the racetrack. Also, it's interesting that Iguazu, we're interested in a second here, he sort of takes off the duel, but don't just lose sight of the fact that the race was very contentious up front, and the horses ended up running 1-2, came from behind.
Yeah, the pace setters were, a couple of the couple of horses that took some money in here were the pace setters, and they backed up, and the horses that were sitting 4th, 5th, and 7th early on come on for the victory, and you see here that Blind Hope is kind of moving away up through the pack here as we get get a better view of him there as we come into the top of the stretch, and at this point here the rider's probably starting to think, okay, well, what's the plan here? Do I try to look for a seam toward the outside? Do I see what happens here? And as he's in behind like a threesome of horses there, he'll try to save some ground, go inside here, but that's always a dangerous move.
Yeah, listen, it's easy to watch the races and decide from your armchair jockeying how the rider should have ridden the horses, and you see him sort of steadying off that horse, but he's still down towards the inside. The others have the momentum on the outside. I don't like the way he didn't finish up, but I wonder if it's a factor of being down towards the inside. I still believe there's a question about that. The thing is, if he had angled out top of the stretch, it's not impossible. It would have been different. Here's the head-on of this race, just to show you and see the trouble that he gets in, as the current leader in this race, Good as Gold, will come over at this point, and Garcia has to angle and go around, and he loses some momentum there. Things didn't work out. When you angle the outside, when you get the clear running, you're never going to get impeded.
Yeah, I think this field for maiden 35, was decent. Expat from the Rick Violet barn, everything they've been sending out is running strong, and the horse that was second, Iguazu, was a trainer changed to Bruce Bound for Castle Village. Those horses have been running excellent as well.
Oh, this was a very, very loaded, and you say maiden 50 for Johnny Angel, and maiden 35 is going to be tough enough, and he's not a horse that rates to get claimed to that horse. But yeah, this was an interesting race, and look for a number of horses out of this race. If you think the rail was dead, horses like Good as Gold are kind of interesting. Even 3 Rudies who bowed down the inside with a rider there with a low percentage. So there are horses out of this race. This is a race, I think, to study that may produce some interesting results down the road, and Blind Hope did have some trouble. Now we're going to come up on another race from this day, and this was the 7th race, and a lot was going on here.
Yeah, a lot going on in the first turn. There's going to be a horse that loses a rider, Jaime Rodriguez, on the 4 Drink It Last Call is going to be unseated here, and we'll take a look, and we'll freeze it right here just to ID some of the horses we're looking at.
Right. What you've got is Ayers Run, the green here. He's on the outside. You'll see David Cohen looking to see if he can come over. He doesn't really have the room as he herds the others in, and we'll show it in the head-on. There is the 4 Drink It Last Call, who loses the rider, and here is the 5 Beresford, who will be affected by the rider who falls off the horse. But Ayers Run is not clear going in the first turn, and it's incumbent on the riders you're not clear to A, not herd others in, which is sort of going on here, and we'll show this clearly on the head-on as they go from paths 6 and 7 to 2 and 3. Jaime Rodriguez, who's got somewhat inexperienced, he gets caught in that as Ayers Run comes over and loses the iron. He falls off. Fortunately for everybody involved, nobody was injured at all. That's always the best news and most important news. But it's not clear that this is an incident that had to happen this way. And with these sharp turns in the 2-turn races, it's incumbent on everybody to make sure they have room. Now, you've got Ayers Run in front. On the outside, you've got New Adventure. We're going to show that horse in the stretch. He gets in trouble. He's already being bothered by Drink It at Last Call, but that's a horse that's going to bother him even worse in the stretch.
A lot going on in the first half mile or so in this race here, and you see Ayers Run, who's up on the lead, to somewhat being affected by the loose horse, but you can't really you can't really say that's an excuse for Ayers Run because he caused the whole thing basically, and we'll see as this 4th place finisher, New Adventure, sitting second right now, gets affected by this loose horse going into the turn.
It's an excuse. It's the way it is.
Right.
But clearly Ayers Run is compromised because this loose horse is breathing down his neck. I don't like Ayers Run. He's claimed out of this race. I don't ever want him going forward because the only race he's ever run well in is when everything has gone his way. New Adventure, Edgar Prado makes a gutsy move here. He splits horses right now between, and I think Edgar does what he thinks is the right move because it's fair to say the loose horse, they usually drift out and get out of there. Well, this loose horse is like Christine in that car movie, deciding to make Edgar's life absolutely miserable. And we shouldn't joke because this is dangerous stuff. As Drink It Last Call comes over, and poor Edgar, who's trying to do everything right and just between a rock and a hard place the whole way, ends up getting completely eliminated. And we'll show you some head-ons, and we'll show you what happens with him. It's just a race where Drink It Last Call obviously didn't have a chance. Everything worked out for some others, but New Adventure really got skunked at different points in this race.
Yeah, it was a tough call for Prado. Like you said, usually the right move is to, I would say, to go inside here. We'll take a look at it from the start, and we'll highlight the horses that we're talking about here, and you'll get a better view of the adventure on the first turn.
Right. Now, just keep in mind, they're out in the 4, 5, 6, 7 path here, okay? Cohen is trying to cut over. You see him looking over, but now he's in the 5 path. Drink It Last Call is in the 4 path. Beresford's back here, but now they're going to the turn. He's tightened it up to the 1, 2, and 3. They're coming in, and you've got to have the room and make sure everybody has the room. And to me, it's not clear that others had the fair room. So now the rider will go down. Now keep your eye on Beresford back here, who's in the back of the pack, because he will get taken out of the race completely because he has to go around that rider, and he's just out in no man's land. We're not saying he would have run well, but you can absolutely draw a line through his race. And now we're going to pick it up in the stretch and look at poor New Adventure.
A New Adventure getting herded in by the loose horse now, and New Adventure's Edgar Prado is just going to have no choice but to take a hold here, as opposed to trying to be gutsy and go on through there. But there's just no way he could have done that.
This is a very good example of herding for people who don't understand that horses are herd animals and they're pushed in and pushed out as the others move on them. So when you see sometimes one horse drifting in a stretch, another horse outside of them drifting, they're not drifting simultaneously. They're being herded. And this is something that happened in the first turn, and it happened with the loose horse in the stretch. That's how they react. A lot going on in these races, some interesting stuff. Hope you take a look at them, and we hope you give us some comments, trips, and traps at NYRAInc.com.
Come on back for the second segment.